Yo, you 14-karat gold slum computer wizard tapping inside my rap vein causes blizzards. It's the Going Off podcast with Rap Critic and Muse.
We've got 2 listener-requested albums that we'll be reviewing this week on the show. But first, the day we're recording this, the biggest news story on Twitter as it pertains to us and our interests is North Carolina's own...
Very own.
J. Cole.
Yeah, your boy got in a little bit of hot water this weekend. It's one of those things where it's like, it kind of takes a bit of nuance to really like parse what happened, you know? And I kind of don't like when people like just put a block thing of like, oh, this person is just bad. Because it's like, well, gives a bit of a doubt, but it was still very tone deaf. Like, it's one of those things where it's just like, this isn't like a, oh, you're canceled. It's more of just like a, why would you say that? You know, like, why? You know what I mean?
I feel like that's been J. Cole for the past few years. He's kind of got the air about him like wind chimes, where he... where he kind of has this smarter than thou attitude that kind of rubs people the wrong way, and you can kind of point to that one track where he was kind of talking down on like the up and coming rappers, but even that, it was like, hey, he's trying to tell y'all to be careful and watch out for people in the industry.
It's not like a diss track.
It's not a diss track, but he can't help but sound like condescending or belittling. I don't know what it is, but whenever he tries to get a thought across and it starts out all right, the tone of it gets in the way.
And this is what I thought was very ironic about what he was saying, right? So let's actually quote the lyrics, right? People are saying that, like, it's rumored that it's Noname, but, like, I'm the type of person who's like, unless I hear a name, like, it could just be anybody, because then 3 weeks later, like I said, you know, this Sunday we're going to find out that he was talking about, like, Angela Yee or some shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it could be anyone.
You don't fucking know. You could be talking about Chrissy Teigen. You don't fucking know.
Someone has to be talking about Chrissy fucking Teigen, that's for sure.
And her show on Quibi.
Quibi! Her show on Chibi Chubby with Kill Bill and Rav.
I scrolled through her timeline in these wild times and I started to read. She mad at these crackers, she mad at these capitalists, she mad at these murder police, she mad at my niggas, she mad at our ignorance, she wear her heart on her sleeve, she mad at celebrities, low key, I be thinking she be talking about me. Now, I ain't no dummy to think I'm above criticism, so when I see something that's valid, I listen. But shit, it's something about the queen tone that's bothering me. She strikes me as somebody blessed enough to grow up in conscious environment with parents that know about the struggle for liberation in turn they prided with a perspective and awareness of the system and unfairness that afflicts them, and the clearest understanding of what we got to do to get free, and the frustration that fills her words that seems to come from the fact that most people don't see. Just 'cause you woke and I'm not, that shit ain't no reason to talk like you better than me. How you gonna lead when you attacking the very same niggas that really do need the shit that you saying? Instead of conveying you holier, come help us get up to speed. It's that last lyric in particular that I feel is the most, like, ironically sort of condescending in how he's trying to say, hey, maybe you should be less condescending to people. These lyrics would play different if he was talking to a guy with the same intention. Like saying like, hey, dude, maybe don't be so rude to people if the point is to change their minds. Because, you know, they might not listen. But virtually all women have had to deal with, you know, being condescended to by guys. So, like, the irony is, in a verse about how this girl should pay attention to how her rhetoric may be off-putting to outside observers, he doesn't seem to be observing the same rule of paying attention to how his rhetoric is off-putting to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, while it really shouldn't matter as to what pronoun he decides to put in the song, it does. Yeah, I could just be talking about anybody. If you said he or whatever, you are still specifically talking about a dude. But yeah, it just feels like when you specify a woman, maybe it's because, especially like in hip hop, there are less women vocal at the forefront of these issues, and it seems more pointed because for every 10 dude rappers on the radio, there's like maybe 1.5 women, and even they're not getting the same radio play, so it seems like, okay, who could this possibly be then? And immediately you're playing fucking Guess Who. Like, alright, so what did Nicki say? Nothing? Okay, then was it Cardi? Like, there's not that many that are that vocal on social media and if he's even talking about someone in the industry, that's kind of up in the air too, isn't it? Like, he doesn't really specify that.
You know what my thing is? It's like, okay, it's specifically the idea of like, she mad at my niggas, she mad at our ignorance, you know, she wear her heart on her sleeve, and it's saying that like, hey, so don't be so harsh to our brothers because we need them to listen. But it's like, would you say that same thing like, don't be so hard on these crackers and these murderous police and these capitalists because we need them to listen? You know what I mean? It's how it like, it stops specifically on, but don't be so hard on the person who just happens to fit my profile. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
So it does come off as self-serving in the grander context. It's like in a granular way, it's like, yeah, I understand saying like, hey man, you know, I tried to do the conscious thing too, and like it comes off kind of odd if you're just like trying to be holier than thou, you know, like maybe try to come at it from a more humility angle. But like, yeah, when you have that dynamic like tossed in there, it kind of futzes things up, and it brings it to another point that someone had brought up. So he said, like, if J. Cole is sending shots at Noname, then fuck him. First of all, say her name. Second of all, you told your audience to pray for 6ix9ine and cape for XXXTentacion, but want to critique Noname for her tone? Is that what's bothering you?
If you're known as, or at least was at a time, more of a conscious dude, and you don't write any bars about police brutality or about systemic racism, and you come out of silence with this, like, this is what your issue, like, that's what makes it look so bad.
Yeah, it's the timing, yeah.
If you were talking about other shit, but if this is the only thing that seems to be fucking getting your ire... And that was the only verse, too.
That's the thing that tripped... Yeah. I was like, wait, that's all? Like, you know what I mean? Usually it would be like, oh, hey, within this, maybe people could take it out of context or whatever in the grander scheme of what he's talking about. But it's just like, no, that's all it was about. How, hey, black woman, maybe calm down. Like, I don't think this is time to tell anybody to calm down.
Wow, look at him go. He really doubts to write about me when the world is in smokes, when it's people in trees, when George was begging for his mother saying he couldn't breathe. You thought to write about me?
He hasn't said that it was about her, right? Like, I haven't heard that. Right. It's not in the song.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it could be about, like, an anonymous person that he just happened to see on Twitter one morning. The fact that people are associating it with her is because maybe she happened to do something recently that trended on Twitter, and so people were like, oh, it must be her. You know, like, I have seen her retweeted. Like, I don't think I directly follow her, but I did see her, happen to see something she had said being retweeted, like, right before that had happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, breaking news. J. Cole making a thread, so let's check it out, see what he says.
Oh, holy shit!
I stand behind every word of the song that dropped last night. Right or wrong, I can't say, but I can say it was honest. Some assume to know who the song is about. That's fine with me. It's not my job to tell anybody who to think or feel about the work. I accept all conversations and criticism. But let me use this moment to say this. Follow at Noname. I love and honor her as a leader in these times. She has done and is doing the reading and the listening and the learning on the path that she truly believes is the correct one for our people. Meanwhile, a nigga like me just be rapping. I haven't done a lot of reading and I don't feel well equipped as a leader in these times, but I do a lot of thinking. And I appreciate her and others like her because they challenge my beliefs. And I feel that in these times, that's important. We may not agree with each other, but we got to be gentle with each other. Peace.
Huh.
Well, what, you know.
Okay.
I feel like that's fine.
Man, it does kind of negate the last 20 minutes, though.
But that is cool, though. Like, you know, just for him to be like, hey, I saw that it feels like you guys think I'm saying that we shouldn't listen to this person. And I'm being like, no. Follow and listen to this person. She's smarter than me. She's on the ball. You know what I mean?
I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like we just wasted all that time.
No, I mean, we captured a moment.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But I'm just saying because by the time this goes up, it'll already be played out, and they'll already know. Oh, well.
Let's see how the news breaks over this weekend. If
Okay.
a diss track, if Noname comes out with a diss track, says, you know what, fuck you, nigga. It's fuck you too. I'm gonna be abrasive on your ass too.
Freedom would be a bother. It's trans women being murdered, and this is all he can offer, and this is all y'all receive. Distract you from the convo with organizers. They talking abolishing the police, and it's a new world order.
We gotta head on over to, I'm gonna make the executive decision here and go with the newer album first.
Yes, I think that makes sense.
Let's go ahead. Go with our first request, requested by Kyle S. It is Net Split, or there's a longer title, but I don't have it right now in front of me. Give me 1 second. It is Net Split, or The Fathomless Heartbreak of Online Itself, by MC Frontalot. I hated this so much.
Oh, are you imitating the cadence in order to match
You know?
how it would feel for the audience?
Not intentionally. I was just doing that as a goof.
Oh.
But, look, I'm just gonna preface this off by saying, nerdcore, am I right? We haven't reviewed anything nerdcore related probably since, I was gonna say MC Chris, but I think, Professor Elemental might count?
Yeah. Like that niche sort of.
I didn't like that either.
I enjoyed
You liked it more than I did, yeah.
Yeah.
He's from that class. MC Chris, Mega Ran,
Samus, you know.
Samus, absolutely. I was trying to think of that one white dude who had that song that was like ska and also hip hop.
What MC Mr. Napkins? What?
Mr. Napkins, no, that's the fucking... That's a whole nother story that kind of blew up today. We didn't talk about Mr. You're using too many napkins getting in some hot water. MC Frontalot, your boy. This is no good. This is really not good. This is really, 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 really bad. And,
The Going Off podcast and the really, really bad, no good album.
I try not to say bad, you know, because music is subjective, right?
Yeah.
But I think this is objectively bad. And, like, it's not that it's just not for me.
It is an album that is, you know, sort of trying to encapsulate the internet experience in a way, right? That's what he's aiming for.
Yeah.
And addressing key issues and concerns and, you know, just general things about the internet, observations about the internet. The immediate issue that I run into is a track like track 2, Memes Are Stupid, which, along with continuing the very wonky, awkward production and flow of the previous track, so, you know, showing that consistency, also just has this weird talking down, like, condescending thing that, like, the thing that people were saying about J. Cole, but much, like, even more, like, abrasive and kind of like, I don't know, man, like, why are you coming after memes in general? Like, and with it, memes are dumb. If you got something to say something. It's like, what? Memes communicate ideas just like any fucking piece of art does. And people remixing stuff is all a part of remix culture in general. You know what I mean? Like, but the only credence he gives is that, like, oh, you add a mustache to a meme. And it's like, what? You know?
First of all, I was thinking of MC Lars. That's the name I was trying to think of.
All these MCs.
He does that song, This Giant Robot Kills, and it's kind of got like a ska break in it. Anyway, MC Frontalot has been at this for a while. This feels like someone who just fucking put pen to paper.
This feels like Johnny Five when he did the Onomatopoeia album. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I seriously thought you were talking about the robot from Short Circuit.
No. Oh, he's rapping like he's just come to life for the first time.
Los locos kick your ass. Los locos kick your face. Los locos kick your balls into outer space.
Johnny break your face. Johnny kick your ass into outer
feeling
space.
Funky fresh.
He's got the mohawk and the cyborg eye and everything. No, yeah, but just look at these fucking titles, man. You don't even need to look much further than that. Track 1, internet sucks. Track 2, memes are stupid. Are you fucking kidding me? What is this? Everything about the first song rubbed me the wrong fucking way. His delivery, his cheesy lyrics. I've mentioned this before, and those who know his voice triggers my misphonia really bad. So I was listening to this album on like 5% volume, because if I had it any louder, I wouldn't be able to listen to it.
Oh no.
If this was not a request, I would have bailed at track 3.
Never read the comments. Never read the comments.
Okay, here, I'm gonna say this, right? Best songs.
Okay.
Okay. Best songs would be, by the way, by best, they got 1.5s. That's Extremely Online,
Okay.
DDoS, and IWF, Internet While Female, which, really? It's 2019 and you're still using female, dude.
Well, I mean,
Come on.
they're doing the joke of, you know, something while black, you know.
I know, but you could say, like, woman is kind of like the politically correct thing now, because
While
female...
woman?
Huh?
While woman?
I mean, you don't have to make it an alliteration.
The idea is that they are indeed addressing the misogyny, you know. So
Okay.
you could argue that that's part of you know what I mean.
That's true.
Yeah, the characterization.
He definitely does play an unlikable asshole on this album, and maybe that's the thing. Maybe the memes are stupid. Maybe that's in character too. Maybe he doesn't actually believe that. Maybe he's just playing.
Oh, this is the reveal to show, like, he's gone so overboard as this character, it's showing how he really feels, right?
He's the one angry gamer HD. He's fucking got a list of all the traitors to his gamerhood, and that's what he's talking about on this album.
And I like it a little bit in the sense of, like, you know, it's the sort of ska thing of, like, hey, if I'm gonna be, you know, this white guy rapper rapping about the internet, I'm gonna, you know, make sure to, like, address, you know what I'm saying, what I feel is an issue within the community, just to be like, you know, just on our side, we're not having that shit. You know, like, so I can appreciate that on that level, right?
100%. If you want to look at it as, like, you know, Nazi punks fuck off, I had to look up. And even though it was my highest rated song on the album, IWF, I'm not gonna lie. I had to look up and see if the women on the track were actually rappers.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, man, maybe it's like, hey, maybe they're just like YouTubers and they're rapping for the first time. Because outside of E-Turn... everyone else sounds like they've never been in front of a microphone before. They sound so uncomfortable.
It reminds me of what you said with the video game album we reviewed, where it's like all these guys rapping, and there's one guy who raps a lot, and then there's one female rapper. It's like, yeah, the ladies can suck at rapping too.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's like, I'm number one.
I'm the best. I'm the female champ. I'm number one.
No! And that's no disrespect to the ladies in a misogynistic way. I mean, it is kind of disrespectful, but I will say, I'm hating on MC Frontalot just as much. I'm not saying he's any better than y'all, because he's really not.
No, at least they have, like, some semblance of flow and unique voice to them. Like, I did like the main singer on the hook, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I like that it had that old school, edgy, you know, 1920s rag vibe to it, you know?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if it was the writing, if they wrote it themselves, or the beat was just not giving them much to work with, because I think they could have done better on the track. I don't want to blame them. I want to blame MC Frontalot because I don't like him. As a rapper, I don't know how he is as a dude, but I just know every time I've tried to listen to anything of his, I've just never liked it. He's always been my least favorite.
And it's not that he's not saying anything, right? Like, he has in Never Read the Comments, he has one verse where he is, you know, the comment guy, basically talking about, like, through the perspective of, like, ooh, I am the person who is allowed to judge how good you are. And that's that's who I am in the comments, and like, you know, having that be the representation of how you feel when you're reading the comments, you know, and he's like, as if to know your worth itself would become debatable, as if anything could be wonderful enough to be unhateable, that anyone smart could suffer a thought that you're not garbage is reason enough we don't move on to the harder targets. You know what I mean? Like, just like, I like that he kind of delved into like the psyche of that type of person, you know, who's like just bothering someone like a Chris Chan or something like that. You know what I mean?
I don't hate on what he's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he does say some good shit on this album. It's just his delivery is...
It's so off-putting.
I can't get past it, honestly. Like, with anyone else saying the same stuff, it might have been fine. But the writing on some of these tracks is so fucking basic, and it doesn't help that he just has one of the most obnoxious deliveries. And
man, when you get to Bad Nerd, that ends it, caps it off. In addition to the bad flow, you got the, you don't have to be bad, nerd.
Look, you have no idea how relieved I was when I went on Spotify to look up the album, saw it was 40 minutes, and then realized that like we didn't have to listen to like 6 of the songs. I was like, oh my god, dude, thank you so much.
Oh god,
I only
that
gotta
was a
listen
good
to
feeling.
8 of them. So it's probably like what, a half hour maybe? That's fine. I can handle that. No problem. I got a 1.
I got a 3.
Woo.
But that's more out of respect for how the topics were varied, and you know that like from song to song it did feel like it was a different experience. You know what I'm saying? Like there was at least that sort of like it satisfied that sort of, and even, you know, like with respect to the idea that this is an indie guy who only has so many resources. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, on one level, I want to be like, hey man, indie guy, you doing the best you can, you know what I'm saying? But like, I'm not gonna act like, you know, it's, yeah, the message is necessarily worth the trip all the way, but it is a unique experience in the sense of like, hey, this guy set out to do this thing, and like, that is a unique experience, and if you wanted to listen to it, I wouldn't be like, don't waste your time, but at the same time, I wouldn't directly push it toward it, you know?
I'm just saying, for a guy who's been at it for this long, I'd expect something of a higher quality, because he's not just some, you know, fresh out the gate. He has been at this for a minute, and just the subject matter on the songs, like, this might have made for maybe 2-3 songs worth of material, but stretched over 8, there's a lot of like, all right, how much are you gonna really say about these topics before it just kind of gets repetitive in the overall message? So I just, I can't hang with it. Yeah, not a fan. But moving on to Raekwon the Chef featuring, guest starring Tony Starks, aka Ghostface Killer, only built for Cuban Linx, brought to you by brought to you by Mick Swagburger XL, because of course your boys got to come through with the follow-up, giving us the B-side. Pretty much everyone talks about Liquid Swords. They almost always talk about only built for Cuban Linx in the same breath, putting it on the same height, the same pedestal, giving it the same time of day, saying that they're the two potentially best.
The two cousin, top solo albums. A lot of people say
you gotta listen to these two for the fucking companion pieces, man. If you're gonna listen to Liquid Swords, you gotta listen to only built for Cuban Linx.
You know, there's so many of the members like also on this album as well. You know, and with just
more.
The idea of it being like the idea of it having like. Yeah, and more. Like, not only is Ghostface here, but he's on every, like, other song. Like, not a lot of albums do that. It was like, here's this guy's solo album, but it's basically kind of introducing you to this guy, too. And also
you fucking get Nas on there. For someone, I know you always bring up Jizza, where does this album stand with you as more of the diehard Wu fan than I am? Where does this one rank
I am weird in that, like, I was more listening to Old Dirty Bastard. You know what I'm saying? More directly. Like, I listened to, Return to the 36 Chambers, and I listened to Nigga Please, and was kind of like, I know this doesn't sound great, but there's something weirdly charming about the idea that someone would make this. Like, but also at the same time, like, the undeniable GZA genius who made Liquid Swords and was always the one who was just like, oh yeah, like, I love ODB because he's crazy, but, like, you gotta respect the GZA just because, like, he's just the sharpest motherfucker in the clan. Like, he's always fucking on point with his fucking rhymes,
How disappointed were you, by the way, that I think ODB is the only member not on this album?
Yeah, people always bring that up whenever they review this album. But it's like, it is kind of hard to say, like, it is so interesting that we just listened to the Geniuses album and how, like, there is a lot of mafioso elements in that, even though people do look to the Geniuses more just like the smart guy rapper. But it's like, it's a smart guy directly in relation to drug wars and all of these things, but just like with that intelligence over it that you don't expect from the common street thug or whatever the fuck. You know what I'm saying? And with the Raekwon's album, it's this different flavor of that gangster rap that makes it that delves deeper into the mafioso angle, and that makes it more about the detailing of the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's fucking product placement out the wazoo on this album, but directly because he's just like giving you the actual, like, this album feels like you're walking into somebody's room in 1995, you know what I mean? Whereas, like, he's talking about the Pally Pels and the Calvin Kleins and the fucking, his chick is rocking the Liz Claibornes, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's interesting that I wrote at the end of this album, like, they're both gangster rap, but you wouldn't directly think more of GZA as gangster rap, but, like, this is gangster rap not in that sort of NWA, I'm gonna kill a whole block full of people, by midday, and, the idea is that I'm just running around causing shit, but the idea is that, like, I am also, like, calculating in what I'm doing, but I also, like, am giving you these, like, jewel-encrusted sort of lyricism where it's, like, a rhyme every, like, couple of words, you know what I'm saying? Like, in how they're laying out and bring you into this world. There's not a lot of punchlines in this rap. It's more just like that insanely intricate detailing. And I was just thinking, like, this album is like all the stereotypes that, someone would complain about rap, but done so well and creatively that it's hard to deny the artistry with which he's doing it.
The way the album is laid out, on the cover, it even says guest starring Tony Starks. So right up front, it's, Chef Raekwon and Tony Starks. We're giving you these characters. And it's supposed to play out like a movie, which is why there are so many skits at the beginning of the songs. Did that work for you?
No, not in the sense of it being... Well, it worked in the sense of, like I said, it set the scene of being that mafioso angle. Like, I look at this is what I was thinking of. I see Genius as being like, his album is like The Godfather, and Raekwon's album is like Goodfellas. You know what I'm saying? Like, it may not be your favorite, mafia movie, but it's like, it's competent because it's made by Internet Francis Ford Coppola. You know what I'm saying?
It's less classic, but it's still
functional, and it's still giving you an interesting, unique sort of story about this, And Ghostface Killer is Scarface. He's just like the fucking action-packed, intense shit.
The reason I ask is because it was a little hard to follow for me, just like trying to figure out
dense lyrically
what was going on
and what are they saying.
I'm just talking about in the skits themselves that, like, before the song actually starts. It's like, we even talked about that a little bit on the GZA album.
They just hit you with the slang.
That there was a song where, like, someone just kind of started singing in the background and you didn't know why on the GZA album. It's like a little bit more of that on here. Like, yeah, like, it does kind of, it sets the tone for the song. Like, okay, that's kind of what we're going to be getting ourselves into. It does do that better than it did on the GZA album.
I feel like, the intros are more iconic feeling Criminology. That intro is incredible. I told you a long time ago, you fucking... Who the fuck you think you're talking to? Fucking, you know what I mean? Like, that is an incredible pairing. That is something that needed to exist. The idea of, like, sampling Scarface, getting angry with that, like, so fucking balls out, you want to go to war type of fucking music that fits, you know, his bombastic personality. You know what I mean? Like, that is so fucking cool that he matched that in that way, you know?
I wanted to mention the samples because in 2020, if someone were to sample Scarface,
right,
it's cliche, it's hackneyed,
played out.
Who needs it? But sampling Scarface in '95, that just hits different.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to point out because it's still RZA doing most of the production, correct?
Mm-hmm.
GZA's album Liquid Swords felt very much like Enter the 36 Chambers Part 2. Like, it's a continuation
absolutely.
of that feel. This album doesn't feel like that at all. Yeah. It's got a couple tracks that have, like, I'll fight you with the Wu-Tang style. Like, all that. It's like, it's in there, but not that much.
It's a little cooler. This album is a little cooler, right?
Man, I am absolutely here for the variety in the fucking beats and the samples and the way that, like, right out the fucking gate, Knuckleheads. It's fucking bouncy and, like, catchy.
With a little piano going.
You're like, this fucking, like, this is a Wu-Tang? Shit, like, what the fuck? Like, it actually kind of sounds almost fun. What's going on here? What is this? The tone on this album, it's still very dark, very menacing, but the beats, a lot of the beats are way more lighthearted than on other albums, especially at that time.
It feels like he's realizing the cinematic quality with which he can bring and, like, illuminate the mood of what he wants to do, and realizing that Raekwon is more of this dense lyricist, and so, like, realizing, like, okay, I'm gonna bring a more character into the production to, like, carry that along. You know what I'm saying? My
favorite album, my favorite cut.
Oh, what?
I'm just seeing if we're on the same page here. Wu Gambinos.
Oh, no. That's not for me. Not
really?
My favorite. Mm-mm.
Oh, no. What's yours?
I gotta go with Glaciers of Ice, baby.
Glaciers of Ice. Hold on.
Woo! The churches be the Glaciers of Ice, original men, possess the power to hold G's, guns, grams, breaker.
That wasn't even in, like, my top tier, actually.
Oh, man, I love that goddamn song. I remember watching the music video. Again, Wu-Tang Clan, iconic music video. You know, like, back in, like, the 2000s years of, like, trying to, you know, go online and find all the music videos for my favorite artists that I could, you know? And, like, oh, man, like, that one just holds a place in my imagination just because, like, the video is so fucking cool and these different fucking styles of rapping. And, like, Raekwon did an interview that I had read on Genius where he said, like, man, I didn't really like my verse on that song. I thought it was whack. I was going to rewrite it. And like, originally, RZA had a completely different beat. It was just like this more basic, like, backbeat, you know, maybe something similar to, like, Knuckleheads, you know what I'm saying? And then, like, he left and came back the next day, and he was just like, holy shit, you just transformed it into this different fucking thing. You've got this woman singing on it, and singing, like, half of Somewhere Over the Rainbow or something like that over the fucking track, and you added these, like, gunshots in the background and all this fucking, you know, the weird little video game sample in there. Like, holy shit, like, what in the fuck is this song, you know?
The singing is what ruined it for me.
Oh, really? No, I think it makes it so epic, though. Wow!
I think it was a little distracting for me.
I thought it was so intense.
Now, I will say, who is referred to as RZA's, quote, secret weapon, I thought was the weakest part of the album. I'm talking about Blue Raspberry.
Oh, no.
I did not care for Blue Raspberry. The girl. That singing was not good, dude.
It just feels like it weirdly fits with this sort of, you know, lo-fi 90s sort of aesthetic, right? Like, their production isn't, like, you know, super classy, and it's very dusty. So, like, the singer that they get kind of, like, has that sort of edge to her, you know what I mean? Doesn't have that polish to her, you know? Like, it just weirdly has that punk sort of tone to me, you know what I mean?
First time I heard her on the album, I got a sort of Madonna singing to Dick Tracy vibe.
Yeah, I mean, come on. You got that one intro, and like, aren't they building it up? You know, where it's just like, what's the joint? It's raining, rainy days. Where you have the intro sounding like the woman who's singing, you know, at the you know, Coco Cabanga Club or something like that.
Exactly.
You know, and then the guy comes up to her afterwards.
At first, I thought it was really cool, but she doesn't sound that great. And, like, just not hitting the notes. Like, there are some notes that
he's the nightclub owner's girlfriend, you know?
You know, I really hate to sound misogynistic, but yeah, it really was a vibe of, like, who does she know? Whose cousin is this? How did she get on the album? Beyond, or rather, behind Wu Gambino's, the tracks that got the highest rating for me would be Incarcerated Scarfaces, and what was the other 4.5? Was there another 4.5 somewhere? Guillotine, Swords, yes.
Oh, yes. That one is, like, I feel like, you know, I mean, fucking Inspector Deck, man. God damn. I was actually just watching the rest of season 1 of the Wu, of Mikes and Men, you know, show that's on Hulu, talking about how, like, Inspector Deck would write verses, and, like, they showed in one of the episodes, like, Inspector Deck rapping, and then, like, the genius going, like, man, I gotta write something different, man.
He's only on the album once, and as far as I can recall, I think he's only on that one cut, but that's all you need, man. He has that lasting impression. Inspector Deck is fucking solid.
Yeah, man. Fucking incredible. Once you get to Raekwon's verse, which is a lot more, like, slowed down in tempo, it just kind of feels like, I mean, you know? But then I feel like Genius rounds it out. You know what I mean?
How about worst song on the album?
Okay, so, let's get into it. Wisdom Body.
That one, really?
Well, not that I, like, hated it. I hate that intro to it. It sours the song so fucking much.
But yo, check the banging sounds that I invent.
I read up on that to where Ghostface says straight up, yeah, I was about punch drunk, and...
Yeah. And you know what's weird about that? Again, I feel like that matches the sort of, you know, punk angle of it, where it's just like, this guy actually sounds like he is drunk at a party hitting on a chick.
He's so fucked up.
But his, like, his flow and fucking lyricism and the way he, like, illustrates things is still so fucking poetic and shit that you're like, I could see someone being kind of charmed by this.
Yeah, I was not really, you know, I was taken by surprise on this one because, it's a Ghostface solo track, I think.
Yeah, originally Raekwon wanted to do a verse, but they were like, nah, this doesn't, it needs to just be him. It's such a personal track, and Ghostface gets so personal, like, with how he's illustrating what he's talking about, you know what I'm saying?
That saved it for me. That saves it from being the worst track on the album. That prestigious award goes to Ice Cream.
And I know why. I think I have a theory. Your boy, Capadonna, bringing us home.
Okay, look.
Oh, man.
Besides Capadonna, I am pleased to report that this was also Ray's least favorite cut on the album. And he didn't want it on here either.
And I want to address this lyric, right? And I had never heard this lyric before. Because their shit is so dense. Like, you can listen to their tracks over and over again and be like, I didn't hear that lyric before. I didn't hear that lyric before. You know what I mean? Like, it really is. I remember RZA saying, like, these guys are like instruments. And he tries to, like, fit, you know, all right, such and such's voice is higher, so I need to match the production by doing this. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you can really hear that genius as you're listening to the music. Shaolin's finest. What up, boo? Peace, your highness. I'm lounging. Big dick style. Y'all niggas is the flyest. Moves you're making. 2 fly jewels is shaking. Not a rape patient. You're looking good, fly colored Asian. It's like, why would you say that?
What?
Why
Who
would
is
you
that?
say that? Oh, you're not a rape patient? Like, what? Why would you bring that up? Don't say that.
And this is after, mind you, I love you like I love my dick size.
I love you like I love my dick size. Ooh,
What
baby,
is that?
I miss you.
No!
Who wants to hear that?
Ray doesn't like the song because he thinks it's too soft for the album. That's not the problem.
This is for roughneck chicks, bro.
That is not the problem. Because I do really like Wu-Tang cuts where it just sounds like they're having fun.
And I love this beat. It's like fucking shining, you know what I mean?
Yeah!
Like it's like
I like that, but it's so fucking creepy. That, yeah, man.
You need Method Man's smooth voice on the hook to soften the edge of this.
Meth is absolutely the saving grace, because that hook.
If you got it said that it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, and I think you need to read the whole thing because it's like a whole big quote from Raekwon. But yeah, he basically says the same thing of like we were sitting in the studio and I was like, hey, what if we wrote a song about women but like their ice cream? And Meth was like,
vanilla, butter, pecan, chocolate deluxe.
Right off the dome, and they're like, wow, that's great. So they built basically a whole song around that hook.
And kind of don't really address it that much in the verses.
Not really. That's as good as it gets.
I feel like, whereas, you know, Raekwon's verse is like, you know, it's solid enough, you know, he's got the little lyrical flourishes in there. Capadonna is just, like, Ghostface Killer, again, has that quality where it's just like, man, this is so weirdly specific, I don't see how someone could relate to this, but like, god damn it, if I was like, I can see the charm, though. Like, when he comes in, he's like, they call me Stocky Lover, uncheck the strategy by any means. Shirley Temple Curls was done by Bailey Jeans. Blackness is America, your name is Erica, right? True. Lazy apple, small feet, 6 shoe, caramel complexion, breath smelling like cinnamon. You know, it's just like, lazy eye? Like, what?
Yeah,
like,
it's
just
like,
to have that.
whatever.
Like, that's not even a sexy thing. That's just like, I'm really illustrating the scene. Like, no, yeah, I like her when she has a lazy eye. Yeah, you know?
I love the world building. I'm 100% here for that. I love that. I love how in detail these tracks get.
I love how, like, with the denseness of their lyrics, when they have little, like, weirdly humorous moments, it, like, comes off, like, strangely more affecting, like, as you're listening to it, like, where he says, like, if I was Jiggy, you'd be spotted like Spud McKenzie. I'm high-powered, put Adina Howard to sleep, your pardon. That bitch been on my mind all week, but, back to you.
Yeah.
That's sort of like, oh shit, my bad. Like, they have these dense lyrics, and then just to have that injection of like, oh shit, I got off topic, you know? But then you get your boy, Capadonna. Black chocolate girl, wonder shake, ground like thunder, politic to your deficit step, give me your number, your sexy, persuasive tatas and thighs. Catch my eyes like pies, I want your bodily surprise. Like, what?
Honestly, I don't mind it. It's really just when he gets creepy is when I'm like, oh no, you're ruining it. But for the most part, it's alright.
Blow wombs out of the sockets. Oh yeah, that's romantic.
Yeah.
It's so funny to see that contrast between like Ghostface and Capadonna, where it's just like, both of them are like, you know, kind of like, yeah, you can argue maybe a hint misogynistic in there, but it's just like,
sure. Ghostface
Killer is so like artistic and like so fucking charismatic that you're kind of like, oh, when I see how someone might, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's the problematic fave, you know?
I mean, he was the one dropping all the F slurs in the album, too, unfortunately. But, you know, 95. Knuckleheads. We quote that track so much. Or at least we used to.
It is not, like, my favorite track on this album at all. Like, it really is, like, the sort of warming up song, you know?
I do like it a lot.
But, like, compared to, like, how the musical landscape, like, opens up by the time you get to a track like, you know, Rainy Days, you know what I mean? It just kind of feels like,
yeah,
what knowledge, God? You know what I mean?
Outside the, you know, rap Parmesan and hit you on the hip and horn. Did you notice that the fucking bass, by the time it got to You God's verse, was, like, almost too fucking much to handle?
Maybe that was, again, RZA trying to balance the voice there, you know, because he's got such a deep voice.
Something I read about RZA that I thought was interesting. Man, I really do recommend anyone who's, like, a fan of the album, but, like, hasn't heard, like, stories about the tracks, go on Genius and read the interview bits on the side. They're really, really crazy informative. Where RZA says that he has, like, a different compression setting for all 9 rappers.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Ghostface doesn't sound good on other people's shit because I know how to produce his voice. I know it needs to be lowered a little bit. Like, it needs to be slowed down a tiny bit or whatever. Like,
but like he's kind of like an artist in that way.
Yeah,
like,
I love
he
that.
is someone who is like Vangelis. He didn't grow up like learning music traditionally, so him doing a song like Glaciers of Ice, like it sounds so strange because it's like it doesn't fit within like Western music's idea of what a key is, you know what I mean? Because it's these weirdly like with these weird samples playing against each other, but there's something kind of like intriguing about how it sounds, you know what I mean? In that sort of like Stephen Reich 1950s, you know, clashing samples thing sort of way, you know, that fucking it's gonna rain, those type of motherfuckers, you know?
After a day of recording, RZA would take the reels home with him and not let anyone listen to them. Like, hey man, I just want to listen back to that one part and say, no, it's too late. You recorded it. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do with it. Too bad. And they're like, oh, okay.
It is such a weird thing where it's like the music really does work in conjunction with these guys like flows and how like because Raekwon's flow is so like jagged, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
it is actually like if you really listen to him, this is like, when you really think about it, this is really challenging the way flows sounded. Like, think about how NWA sounded in 1991 and this is 1995. You know, like, this is so much more complex. Like, this is like passing the torch from Big Daddy Kane and being like, let's do it even more, you know? Like, but it's not even like we just got the simple beat going. It's like, no, it's these complex tapestries of beats mashing this complex tapestry of like flows and how they're like saying certain things and these strange like, you know, bits of slang that like you might have never heard before, references to things that are so specific. Like, no, you have to be from Staten Island to know what they're talking about. By any means, Shirley Temple Curls was done by Bailey Jeans. Like, that's something actually very specific to like a part of Staten Island. Like, oh yeah, girls get these haircuts called Bailey Jeans at this specific place, you know?
I marked out a little bit on Rainy Days when he says he's listening to 1010 Wins. It's a fucking New York radio station. I remember that shit. Like, little local references like that I like. It definitely adds to the overall picture they're painting. Like, you can actually visualize this shit as it's going on. We gotta mention your favorite and mine making a surprise appearance on this album. Papa Woo! Papa Woo! What are you doing in Springfield? I think we could have ended the album on a stronger note than North
We could
Star.
have ended this album just 2 tracks earlier.
Yes! Yes. I was just gonna say, because Heaven and Hell is not that strong either. Goddamn Blue Raspberry! What are you doing on here again? No, but Heaven and Hell and North Star,
and they're just talking, and it's like, it's one of those things where it's like earlier in the album where it's like, oh man, we're talking about something specific about these shark biting ass niggas who are stealing, you know, niggas off the Nas shit, you know what I'm saying? And you know what's funny about that? They were talking apparently secretly about Notorious B.I.G. like fighting off the album cover. Yeah. Oh! Because they're saying like, oh, Nas's album cover was like, hey, having a baby on the album cover, you know, and now, oh, you make your album cover about having a baby on the album cover. And it's like, you know, I personally had never even thought about that before. Like, you still enjoy that because it's like hearing them talking to each other like these fucking like close ass cousins who are just like, oh yeah, no, they been on that dude shit. Like, it really is like somebody said as I was listening to, I mean, I was watching the of Mike's and Men thing. They were like, there was this one woman who was like promoting them and like showing their demo around town and being like, dude, it's like you're in on the cypher with them. It's like you're listening with them. It's like the rap version of a podcast, you know, like, you know what I mean? It's like, really man, and so it's like after the rapping, it's like, oh, all right, now you're going home and like hanging out and watching kung fu flicks with them. It's like you are hanging out with these personalities as you listen to it. You know what I mean? Like, and it is so fascinating that they got in touch with that sort of thing, but were able to bring these interesting, flavorful, you know, mixes to it. You know what I'm saying? Maybe track 1 or 2 is not as dope, and then the last couple of tracks kind of like could be shaved off. Like, especially with when they're just talking at the end of Heaven and Hell, and it's just like, I can't even really notice, like, what are they talking about? Like, you know, it's not specific enough to be like, you want to listen to it, you know? With the intro, it's like, oh man, this is my last fucking brick, man. I ain't selling this shit no more. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to give this shit up. Like, oh yeah, I can hear what you're talking about. On fucking, on Shark Niggas, they're like, yeah, don't fucking bite our style. And then the fucking, just to fucking contrast them, you know what I'm saying, so much, just to make sure you don't bite their style, they launch into possibly one of the most experimental RZA beats, the fucking boom boom ba-dum the fucking opera singer in the background, like, what in the fuck is going on?
And even like the beat on North Star is like super spacious and like trippy. I loved that.
The atmospheric feel of it, but it's just like, he's just taking so long to talk about, like, yeah, that's how you grow up from a cricket, and you're growing up now, and you gotta realize that a good man is a good... And the thing is, it's like, it directly contradicts itself, like, at the end with what he's saying. He's saying, like, you know, no man can judge for another, but each man must weigh all facts and circumstances and find truth in his own judgment of righteousness. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it's like, see the way to evil, balance, equality in no man, for no man is good and bad at the same time. Either you're good or you're bad. And that's what the album ends on. And it's like, but you just said you can't judge people because you gotta weigh the facts and the consequence. I'm like, what?
2 tracks we didn't really mention. Ice Waters, where I thought Capadonna was actually pretty nice on that one. And Can It All Be So Simple? Parentheses, remix? There is an issue with Can It All Be So Simple that kind of comes up on other tracks, and I remember having the same issue with the GZA album, is that a lot of these tracks will just kind of stop.
Oh, go on for a while?
And then have like another 2 minutes of beat at the end. And it's like, especially on Can It All Be So Simple, like, I'm skipping after that last verse. Like, there's no reason not to just skip ahead to the next track, because I'm not missing anything by doing that.
Literally, the appeal to it is the idea of, like, because it is kind of like breaking the form, like, I mean, were there a lot of rap songs like this before this, like, prominently? Like, usually, if you're making a rap song, you understand you're in the game, like, you gotta do verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, out.
Right.
You know, you don't, like, fucking talk for a minute at the end. But, again, part of that appeal is the, like, oh, it's like you're hanging out with them, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, not only are you rapping with them, but you're, like, hearing their conversations and how they feel about shit outside of that. But, yeah, it becomes a bit much, and, you know, where you're just like, all right, dude, get to the next one, unless you're talking about something that's really interesting, like the Shark Niggas part, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And another similarity to Liquid Swords is that the tracks on this album where it's just Raekwon, like, you're listening to the posse cuts, and it's just, like, unbelievable, just talent after talent, and, like, you can't even stand it. It's so fucking, like, it's almost too much. But even on the tracks where it's just Raekwon, he holds his own very
solid.
Well.
You know?
It basically, like, even Raekwon says he thinks the album is as much a Ghostface album as it is a Raekwon album. Like, they basically tag team it. And for the most part, they are. But you give him a track by himself, he fucking handles it just fine. He doesn't need the help, but, you know, it doesn't hurt either. I ended up giving this album the same rating as Liquid Swords, actually. I gave it a solid 4. How about you?
I give it a 4.5.
Yeah.
I really do, like, enjoy, you know, the musicality of it, and just how it, like you said earlier, expands. Like, once again, like, going back and listening, like, you know, I have heard the Wu-Tang's first album, you know, forever, and then hearing the Geniuses album recently, and then hearing the progression going on to this one, it's just like, whoa, this motherfucker is really, like, he really is challenging, because this is, what, 1995? You know what I mean? Like, he's really stretching and reaching, like, shit like the Wu Gambinos and the beats on that. It's just like, this is so experimental, and yet it's still, like, it's somehow nerdy and hardcore and fucking, you know what I mean? Like, how the fuck are they pulling this off? But like you said, they know how to pull it back, right? Like, they're still the samples, but they're from these, you know, mafia movies, and maybe they're gonna be talking more about, like, deals going wrong and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, he knows what he's doing when he's painting this picture, you know, in a way that you would see P. Diddy do with, Notorious B.I.G. like, a year later. You know what I mean?
Riz has always been impressive, but this is where he really shows his range.
I remember hearing that around the time they were making Inspect the Deck's album, there was a flood in his apartment that, like, destroyed his equipment, so he didn't have, like, a whole bunch of the beats that he had planned for it. And I just think, like, cruel fucking fate. Like, man, imagine if the streak could have just, like, solidly continued, you know? I remember feeling the same way with Method Man's album, because Method Man is actually the first one to have a solo release. His came out at, like, so Wu-Tang's album was, like, 93, Method Man's was 94. And his, like, was put out immediately. And I remember them saying, like, I remember listening to it and feeling like, man, Method Man's the most charismatic out of all these motherfuckers. Why don't I feel this album as much? And I remember learning later, like, oh yeah, that one was kind of rushed. So, you know, and then, like, it kind of sucks because, like, Method Man doesn't have, like, that classic album. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, he really doesn't.
But, you know, you see with the Genius, he was able to take more time and create something more, deep and thorough, and then given with more time and just being allowed to expand. Like, geez, man, like, this album is so impressive just musically, and then, like, putting it in the context of the time, like, he was doing shit motherfuckers were not doing and going beyond that, you know? Like,
that about wraps it up for this week's episode of the Going Off podcast. Thank you so much for checking us out, fucking with us again. Like I'd mentioned earlier, these were listener requested albums. So, last week we did a couple new releases. We like to switch it up, and if there isn't anything particularly eye-grabbing that comes out that week, we'll switch it over, do some listener requests, and that's why you got 2 of them this week. So if there is an album that you would like to hear our thoughts on, head on over to our Ko-fi page. That is ko-fi.com/goinoff. That's GOINOFF. One-time $40 pledge gets you an album review of your choosing. And if you are an artist yourself and there is an album that you put together that you would like to hear our thoughts on, that is a one-time $50 pledge. I think only one person has taken up on that offer so far.
Or maybe 2, I think, actually.
Well, we haven't got to them yet.
Yeah.
We're all over the place.
Twitch.tv/rapcritical.
That's why we got the link trees provided, because there are way too many links even plug at the end of this damn show anymore. The Going Off experience, the Going Off extended universe.
The extended universe, yeah.
It doesn't end, man. As far as the eye can see.
As far as the ear can hear.
If this is your first time checking us out, all of our old episodes are on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, and Spotify. One of those is bound to work for you. Give it a try. Play some catch up. Skim through, see if there's an album that catches your eye, and you're like, I wonder what the Going Off boys had to say about that one. Just start there. By the end of it, you'll have binged who knows how many episodes, wasted who knows how many hours.
I think what's really cool about our thing is that, like, usually with most people, they do, like, 1 movie per episode. But, like, you know what I'm saying? We're giving you 2 things. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like back to back, double the content immediately.
There was a time when you boys were only giving you 1 album review an episode. And we fucking bumped that shit up for y'all.
Young gods, how could you be so generous?
More bang for your buck. We gotta listen to 2 albums every week. Oh my god, our lives.
Oy.
How do we find time to do anything else?
Seriously, though.
But until next week, for the Going Off podcast, I'm Muse.
And I'm the Rap Critic. And fuck yeah, my crew down's German beers. My career is based on guns, throwing cats in wheelchairs, etc.